Welcome to the Being Your Own CEO Success Circle. We get together because we like each other's company, we like experimenting, we like sharing our discoveries, which lately seems to be quite a few, and we sometimes even do a little business together. So this morning we are going to be talking about Elon Musk. But first, as usual, we usually do some introductions. And by way of explanation, the reason I think it's important for us to keep doing our introductions is so that we keep our elevator pitches live and going, so that as we begin to get back out into the networking world, which in Victoria here on Thursday of this week, there's a networking event happening, and it's going to be face to face. And of course, we all need our elevator pitches to be fresh and interesting and current for those networking events. So I think, David, you were here first, so away you go.
Hello, Dave Flannery here from Rock Falls, Illinois, USA, where it's cloudy and gonna rain, and we're getting another inch of rain, which is great because we were in a drought situation and now we're out of that drought situation. Mm-hmm. And I'm with affordable websites for small businesses, where we promise to make you a simple but effective website to get you found on the web on the search engines. With that, back to you, LowellAnn.
Good morning. Thank you.
It's a little harder than it looks, and I'm trying to change what I'm doing. So,
I know. Just by way of explanation, we had a reason to get our elevator pitches going because David and Vivek and I are working on a project, and we decided we needed to do a little short recording of ourselves giving a bio or an elevator pitch. So that's what what prompted all of this. But now, as I say, locally, there's Elder Friendly Network is starting up and going to meet for the first time in about 2.5 years this week. So yeah. Anyway, Vivek, how about you? Be sure and explain your really snazzy outfit today.
David is waving.
Yes, we are streaming. I got two things to do, and that's we're streaming live on YouTube and the webpage correctly. And Javita says hello to everybody and good day.
Good day, Javita. Good evening to you. I know it's evening where you are. Okay, go for it, Vivek.
Namaste. My name is Vivekanand. Literally, it means wisdom and happiness. I am proud to share my belief with Steve Jobs and Leonardo da Vinci, who said simplicity is the ultimate in sophistication. I aim to bring time-tested wisdom and happiness together into your business and life by unifying, simplifying, and amplifying simple technology and tools. Together, at Wake, we wake up our potential. So that's my elevator pitch so far. Yeah, with regard to my get up, setup, whatever, fancy dress, costume, whatever you want to call it, I am now a volunteer for the Save the Soil movement that's happening at least on this part of the world, United Kingdom and Europe, um, Sadhguru has been riding a motorbike. He started on the 21st from London, then he went to Netherlands, Berlin, and now Vienna. So he's every day he's in a different city on his motorbike. So his message is, you need to save the soil. We all think that soil doesn't have anything, it doesn't have any value, it's all dead. Yeah, it is getting dead, that's the problem. So
Yes.
when the soil goes completely dead, it becomes desert. When it becomes desert, there is no food for anybody. And Sadhguru has already predicted that there will be lots of wars for food. There will be wars mainly for fertile land. And as far as I can see, what's going on now is the first one of those things. So.
Well, and I sure wish Sadhguru were going to come and travel through Canada, because we have lots of factory farming happening here, and that's what the problem is the factory farming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's so important for all of us to be paying attention to some of these things that are going to determine whether our planet and the people on it, well, the planet will survive, but it's a question whether the people will.
Yeah, planet will certainly survive. It's the people which is the question.
Yeah.
Are we going to survive, or are we going to be extinct? The other day, Sadhguru was joking. A generation of people, young people, they are calling themselves Generation Z. That's the last alphabet in the English alphabet system. So, are they planning to be the last generation of humanity? I hope not. Why are they calling them Generation Z?
Well, they started with X, and then they went to Y, and then they went to Z. Z.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. But I find it also interesting the color that was chosen as the for the what do they call it? Merch. The merch.
Okay. Yeah.
It's nice to see the green color. Yeah. So. So welcome here.
Thank you.
So, did you say you're in the UK in your speech?
Yeah, I am in Reading, England, and the weather has been again back to cold again. So I am sitting with the heaters on and all that, but yeah.
I was just checking my phone to see what the temperature is. Right. So now, Fred, what's your preference? Would you like to do a presentation to introduce yourself and keep that separate from your presentation, or did you plan on doing it all one?
No, I'll do a introduction now.
Okay.
I'm Fred Jones, the creator of Our Future Leaders. We assist the young generation, known as the Generation Z, or Z as Vivek said, to learn communication and leadership skills so they can actively build a better world, which we definitely need, as Vivek has just alluded to. And I have a lot of approaches and material that I can share with people who want to work with youth. So if anybody knows of anyone, please let them reach out to me, even if they're going to talk to youth for half an hour, an hour. I have all sorts of systems up to having a regular club where they meet regularly. So anyone you hear of anyone, please reach out to me. I have lots of material. And I am the ambassador for Agora Speakers International for their youth program. So we work around the world. So I'm currently in Langford, which is next to Victoria, where LowellAnn is located. And it's 6 degrees cloudy, going up to about 11. I think it's supposed to go up to 11 degrees centigrade. Here on the south tip of Vancouver Island on the west coast of Canada. Back to you, LowellAnn.
A good geography lesson. I might just say that Alana may or may not be here. I got a text from her earlier saying she had to go out, and that she was going to endeavor to get back on time. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe she pops in whenever. And I thought I would finish us off by doing my elevator pitch. I love supporting retired third agers who are experiencing overwhelm and uncertainty, and usually procrastination as they take the first steps toward creating their own online business. With my solopreneur coaching service, you can choose the level of support that makes the most sense to you. So it would be done by you, or done with you, or done for you. To find out more, be sure to visit my website that you can see on my upper screen, LowellAnn.com. So we have gone through our introductions, and so I might just, by way of a little bit of context, we quite a long time ago now, we were offline. We were all having a chat about what are some of the things that we would be really interested in talking about in future success circles. And Fred mentioned that he had an interest in Elon Musk. So we thought that would be an interesting topic for the rest of us to learn more about. So Fred, as I thought about that, I thought, first of all, when did you get an interest? When did your interest in Elon Musk arise, and your interest and curiosity, I'm guessing? And what was it that raised that curiosity for you way back? I know you've been following him for quite some time, so.
I don't know exactly what it was, but one of the items that really interested me was he was born in South Africa, went to high school in the same town that my children went to high school. And I have a daughter who was born in the same year as him. So that was one of the reasons. But of course, there's a lot of other. I managed to get a book from the library, which was his history, and that really fascinated me. The fact that his parents, well, one of his mother was born in Canada, and so on. So there's a lot of interesting items which sort of cross. He went to the same university in Canada for a while that my daughter went to, not at the same time, but the daughter who's the same age, she got her PhD in the Queen's University, and that was the first university he went to in North America before he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of sort of cross-pollination here and then of course, just what he's achieved is absolutely outstanding. So that's, I don't know exactly what the first trigger was, but the more I learned about him, the more fascinating he became. So that's why.
Okay. It is interesting how all those little connective pieces happen, isn't it? Yeah. Wow. So I'm looking forward to this. Fred has agreed to give us a presentation, And so, before he starts, are there any questions or comments that Vivek, you or David want to bring in, or shall we just go ahead? Go ahead. Okay. So, over to you, Fred.
All right, thanks, LowellAnn. And I really want to start with asking each of you, what do you know about Elon Musk? And I'll start with Vivek. When somebody says Elon Musk, what would you say about him? What do you know about him?
Um, he has been very successful in stirring up the automobile industry, the car industry, and um, he also has kind of giving a wake up call to, say, NASA, for example. uh, he made the things cheaper for them. I mean, or the space travel is, he's saying it's going to become a reality soon, and all that. So I see him as a very successful technological entrepreneur, leading edge of technology.
Yeah, that's for sure. Definitely. Okay. All right. Dave, if somebody says Elon Musk, what would you say? This is what I know about him or what I think about him.
Well, what I know about him is that he's running a car factory that's producing electric cars. Now, I've not checked into it far enough, but it seems to be, at least at the end, it's reducing our emissions to the air. Now, I don't know. What I don't know is how the process works, and like the batteries, how much damage to the environment to make a battery is it, so forth and so on. Because sometimes you can do more damage by doing the process so that in the end you you can save it. It looks like you're saving the planet, but you're really not. So you have to check into the process. It's kind of like alcohol fuel additives in the United States. It costs as much money or more to produce the alcohol fuel as it does to buy a barrel of oil. The one advantage is it's a little bit cleaner burning, but it's still burning fossil fuel, and it's something we need to get rid of. So that's one thing. The other thing is he might make one of my bucket list items come true. I've always wanted to be the as-built draftsman or photographer for a spaceship. Now, I've only got a few years left, or I shouldn't say a few. I've got, quite a few years left, but I don't think I'm going to be of the age that he would let me go up, but you never know. So, that's what I think.
Well, I think it was him who let an elderly lady who was going to be an astronaut but never went up, and he took her up, and I think she was in her 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So, hey, there's still time, Dave.
But I don't think they would let her do the as-built drafting or the as-built photography. But you never know. You're weightless, so you don't have as much. You don't have to expend as much energy as you do down here on Earth. So
you never know, Dave. You never know. Life is strange. It could happen.
Yes. It could. That's why I keep that still on my bucket list. I haven't crossed it off yet.
Good.
It's impossible.
You never know. Elon Musk might assist you in that regard. And LowellAnn, what if somebody says Elon Musk? What would you say?
Well, I realize that his name comes up frequently online in the news, etc. So that's the first thing. Recognition that he's recognized by all of our systems. And I think when I think of him, as the other guy said was about his work around electric cars, but I think I probably think more about what he talks about and all the stuff he does in terms of space travel. Yeah. So, but I'm curious to know a lot more about him. I haven't had enough interest to dive in and know any more than what I just said. So,
Great. I appreciate that. That tells me that I have something that you might find of interest and
of
to share
course.
with you. Okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen. And one thing I'd say, if perhaps my voice starts breaking up because of the internet here, let me know and I'll close my camera down because that might help. But at the meantime, until that happens, I will continue as normal. So I'm going to share my screen and show you a few pictures while I discuss Elon Musk. So now, as it states, Elon Musk was Time Magazine's Person of the Year last year, 2021. Hey, that's interesting on alone, and I'll go into detail a bit later on about that. But let's start at his beginning in 1971. When he was born the same year as my daughter, who's in California. And Elon Reeve Musk was born on June the 28th in Pretoria, Transvaal, South Africa, which is not far from where I was living in South Africa. His mother is interesting. Her name is May Musk, was born Haldeman. She was born in Saskatchewan, and she has become and is a model and a dietitian and is successful in her own right. I mean, she's not unsuccessful. When she was 2 years old, her father left Canada and went to live in South Africa, and he's an interesting person as well. It's not about him, but he was a bit frustrated. I believe he was a chiropractor and was very heavily involved in sort of politics in Canada as well, but he didn't agree with some of the things that were going on in the politics and particularly in the chiropractic practice. And I found out that he did a lot of other things. His grandfather, he was a venturer, he was a pilot, and he traveled all around Africa in his plane with his wife. But that's how come Elon Musk has Canadian citizenship, because his mother was born in Saskatchewan. That's part of the tale. His father, Errol Musk, was an engineer, a pilot, a sailor, a property developer, and apparently not a very nice person. So his mother divorced him when Elon was around 8 or 9.
Where was the father born?
I'm not sure, but I believe he was South African, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Yeah. And the family, his mother arrived when she was 2 years old, I believe, in 1950. So let me just see if I can change the screen here. Yeah, that worked. Now, this is Elon and his brother Kimball, who was born a couple of years later, and he has a younger sister as well. So that's Elon. If you see pictures of Elon, you can recognize him. Now, he was very bright. He started to read when he was early. He always had a book. He was always known. If he disappeared in the shopping mall, he was in a bookstore reading. He just loved reading. And he has apparently a photographic memory as well. So he's a very, very bright person in many ways. And one of the things that he has said, that he could be classified as having Asperger's syndrome. Now, Asperger is really people who are often challenged with social interaction, and I think that still carries on a little bit today because he does some strange things sometimes a little bit. That people would say, oh, that's weird, but that he has a weird sense of humor. And he does have a sense of humor, which is interesting as well. But they're often bullied, and he was bullied as a youngster. And he's often poorly, understood because he's very bright in many ways, and he will say things tell people things, and he'll say, yeah. So he was a nerd, a weirdo, and he was bullied. In fact, he ended up in hospital once, being thrown downstairs in South Africa, down a staircase because of bullying. And I can relate to that because, honestly, this is just the culture. They are tough. You got to be a man in South Africa. A man has to be a man, and he was, a nerd. So that happened to him. He has a younger sister who was born as well. I think she was born in 1974, if I'm not mistaken. And Kimball was born a year after him in 1972. So at the age of, in 1980, his parents got divorced. He did live with his father for a short while, but he said that was a difficult time in his life. His father wasn't a nice person. So that's as much as he says. He doesn't go into detail. But in 1981, at the age of 10, he got interested in computing and video games, and he learned computer programming at the age of 10 by himself, got a manual and learned basic programming. And 2 years later, he sold a video game, a code of a video game that he had created called Blastar, if I'm not mistaken. And he made $500, which was at the age of 12 was pretty good. So that was his first thing. He was also bullied, as I mentioned, and he was hospitalized, as a teenager. As I mentioned when you asked me, he went to high schools, including Bryanston High School, which is in Santon, where my children went to. Not the same school, they went to Santon High School. So that was thing around the same time as well as my children, because again, my son was a couple years older than him, and my youngest daughter at the time was the same age as him. Now, when he was 17 or 18 in 1989, there was conscription in that time, which means you have to go to the army. And when you're 18, so in 1989, he decided he didn't want to go to the South African Army, and I don't blame him. My son also, who lives in Nanaimo, also avoided conscription. And if you're in university, you don't have to, go to the army. He went for a couple of months in South Africa to the University of Pretoria. And then in June of 1989, he arrived in Canada because he had got his Canadian passport because his mother was born in in Canada. And I recall reading somewhere that he was looking for an uncle who was apparently living in Montreal, but that uncle had disappeared somewhere in the United States. So he ended up in Saskatchewan and lived on a farm with his second cousin in Saskatchewan, and he worked odd jobs on the farm. So now he's about 18 years old. And that's a picture of apparently his 18th birthday, if I'm not mistaken. And he also worked in a lumber mill in Vancouver. And if you ask him, it's been recorded, that was the most difficult job he ever had in his life. And it was a job that no one else wanted. He had to climb into the boiler with a hazmat suit and clean out the boilers in the lumber mill. And no one would take this job. And he lasted longer than anyone. And that's a characteristic of him. The resilience and persistence is the type of person he demonstrated even at the age of 18 in a lumber mill in Vancouver. But he said that was the toughest job, physical, and it was dangerous and all sorts of stuff. But that was a job he did when almost nobody, but it paid $18 an hour. And that was good money for an 18-year-old in those days. So that's what he did. And then at the age of 19, a year after arriving, he went to Queen's University in Kingston, which is the university my daughter also went to subsequent, not at the same time, but she got her PhD there. And then after 2 years there, in 1992, at the age of 21, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. So he managed to get in, and that wasn't easy. They just don't take transfers very easily. But he's bright, so he got in. And he graduated in 1995 at the age of 24 with a Bachelor of Arts in Economics and a Bachelor of Science in Physics. So he got 2 degrees. by the time he was 24. And then he was accepted for a PhD program. Now that to me is sort of remarkable because he's got 2 degrees, but at Stanford University, and he was going to go to his PhD in material science, and he lasted the whole of 2 days. He attended that PhD after being accepted. And I think it had something to do with, he realized he had applied for a couple jobs. He had done some internship in California as well during his summer vacations in the University of Pennsylvania. And he realized that no one would give him a job. He applied and he never got anything. And he said, I think I better start my own company because no one's going to employ me. Just they don't want to hire me. So maybe that was his, his social awkwardness or whatever when they interviewed him. I'm not sure why, but he decided after 2 days, start his own company. And he started in 1995, again at the age of 24, with his brother, Kimball, and another fella, Greg Curry. And they developed an internet city guide for newspaper publishers. Wow. It was called Zip2. And they rented an office, and that they slept in the office, didn't have enough money to have a place to live. So they slept on a couch and showered at the YMCA. And they had one computer where the website, the Zip2 website, was up during the day. And at nighttime, it was down while Elon Musk programmed, the software during the night for 7 days a week. And in 1999, at the age of 27, Compaq Computers bought Zip2 for $307 million. Oh. And Elon received $22 million for his 7% share in that company. So at the age of 27, he was now a millionaire. And he then decided to co-found, again at the age of 27, another company called XCOM, which was an online financial service and email payment company. And it was, I think, one of the first federally insured online banks, XCOM. And he was the CEO, but he was 27 and, again, maybe awkward a little bit. And he was replaced as the CEO, but he still worked there. And then in 2000, a year after they started the company, it was merged with another company, XCOM. And that company ultimately ended up being PayPal. And he was replaced as the CEO once again because he was the CEO. And in 2001, when he was 30 years old, PayPal was acquired by eBay for $1.5 billion in stock. And he was the largest shareholder with the 11.7% of stock in PayPal. So he got $175 million at the age of 30. So financially, he's done quite well.
Kidding.
Yeah. So there he is with Peter Thiel, who's well known as PayPal, and there's Elon Musk. Hi. Now, Elon became, at the same time, in the year 2001, when PayPal was sold, he became in a nonprofit Mars Society, and he was inspired by their plans to place a growth chamber for plants on Mars. And he actually discussed funding the project on his own because he now has $175 million. And in October of 2001, this is the same, he's still 30 years old, he traveled to Moscow to buy a refurbished ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles from Russia. But the Russians thought this 30-year-old geek is, crazy or whatever. And they saw him as a novice. In fact, apparently some Russians spat on him, just telling him, he's stupid or whatever they said. I don't know. But again, the year later, at the age of 31, he returned to Russia, where he was trying to buy 3 rockets, and he was offered one rocket for $8 million. And he thought, that's ridiculous. And so he's going to start his own company to build affordable rockets, which is what Vivek said. So again, he's now 31 years old, and he, with $100 million of his own money, of the 100 million, he started SpaceX in May of 2002 at the age of 31. And as of today, he still remains the company's chief executive officer and chief engineer. He is the chief engineer, so he's very smart when it comes to engineering, because he still remains the chief engineer for SpaceX. Okay. And then in 2004, he, at the age of 33, he invested $6.5 million in Tesla, which had been started in the year 2003 by two engineers. So they started in 2003. In 2004, he invested $6.5 million, and he became their biggest shareholder. And he took an active role in it. He became not the CEO. He became the chairman of the board of directors. But he did take an active role in the development of the Roadster, which was their first product that they sort of produced. But he wasn't involved in the day-to-day in 2006. And also in 2006, he provided the initial concept and financial capital for Solar City, which was his cousin, two cousins co-founded in 2006. So he gave them the money for that. But he wasn't involved with Solar City much other than funding them. That is still part of, it goes into Tesla because it's called Tesla Engineering, Energy now. And that tells us some interesting things about that. So in 2008, at the age of 37, SpaceX successfully launched Falcon 1 into orbit. And that was the first private liquid fuel rocket to do so, private company. And they received some contracts. Now they had failed attempts, in fact, it was so close that they weren't going to make it. 3 times they tried to launch rockets and they were unsuccessful. It was the 4th time that they were successful, and they were running out of money. They had spent his 100 million. But the 4th time, that was the closest he came to failure with SpaceX, and it's gone on to a lot of success after that. So again, it's persistence. It just shows you that's a characteristic that he definitely demonstrated, not only in the lumber mill in the boilers, but just keep on. Now, also in 2008, there was a lot of challenges with Tesla. Like, he hadn't taken control of Tesla. He was just the chairman of the board. But there was a lot of things going on, and there was the 2008 financial crisis, and he assumed leadership of Tesla then. And he became the CEO and the product architecture. Once again, technically, he took control of the technology. And after that, they sold their first line of cars. They sold 2,500 Tesla Roadsters, which was their first sort of vehicle that they produced. And that was the first all-electric car using lithium-ion batteries. So that was at the age of 37. Then in 2012, with Tesla, they started to deliver the Tesla Model S. And that was sort of now starting to produce more automobiles. And they had, their factory was in a discarded sort of called factory that Toyota and General Motors had in Fremont, California. And they took over that factory and they started producing cars like the Model S. And also then a few years later, in 2015, he started with SpaceX, Starlink, which was the satellite internet access where they're putting up satellites. And in 2016, we're getting close to now, he's age 45 now, he co-founded Neuralink, which is a neurological startup company to integrate the human brain with artificial intelligence. He also, in 2016, again at the age of 16, he founded the Boring Company, which constructs tunnels. And also in 2008, Tesla acquired Solar City, which I mentioned earlier that he had funded, for over $2 billion in 2016, and he merged it with the battery storage products division to create Tesla Energy. So that's interesting, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later on, what he's done, some example of what he's done with that. And then in 2019, May, Starlink had put up the first 60 operational satellites to launch their world around the world internet. And they'll say it'll take another couple of years before they have it, and it's going to cost $10 billion to get all those satellites up. And I think they say it'll be maybe the end of this year, next year. I can't recall when they feel Starlink will have most of its satellites up. And then in 2020, they had their first crewed flight. The first crew went up, you may have seen that, and docked with the International Space Station, which was the first time an American, instead of a Russian rocket, took people up, Americans up. That happened in 2020. Okay. Now, in 2021, last year, Elon Musk became the richest man in the world. He was worth over $300 billion. And later in the year, it was in January, he was worth 200 billion, but by later in the year, he was worth over 300 billion. And there's predictions that he's probably going to be the world's first trillionaire. The second most rich person is Jeff Bezos from Amazon, but it depends on the stocks, but he has probably over $90 billion more than Jeff Bezos. So he's the second. So this is at the age of 50. He's now 50 years old. Well, he's still 50. He'll turn 51 in June of this year. So he did something which was interesting, and I find it interesting. He changed his title, which is a legal title, from CEO of Tesla to Techno King, because he doesn't believe in titles. He says that's just a lot of nonsense. What does a title mean? So he's been called Techno King on some of the documents for that. Now, Tesla has reached the market capitalization of $1 trillion. It's the sixth company to do so in the United States history. $1 trillion now. It's worth more than Ford, General Motors, and Toyota combined, this little electric car company. And they're poised to do even better. Last year, in 2022, they produced almost 1 million vehicles. It was 900 and something thousand vehicles that they sold. They have that factory in California, which is known as the most productive automotive factory in North America. This discarded factory, they've turned it into the most productive, better than any other automotive factory in North America. They have a gigafactory in Shanghai, which is going to probably produce this year, they estimate could be 1 million vehicles alone in that factory, and they're expanding that factory. But that's with those two factories, they produced almost 1 million cars and sold them around the world. But what's happened just the last week, their gigafactory in Berlin, Germany is open. So they have now another big factory, and I'm talking, these are enormous factories, starting to produce in Germany. So in the European market, which he dominates. They sell more Tesla already, but those Teslas were shipped mainly from China, the ones that they were selling. But now they're manufacturing. Plus, next month they open an enormous factory in Texas. So he's got 2 enormous factories coming online, bigger than any other car factory. They're absolutely outstanding, unbelievable the size. So they are primed to produce at least 2 million. They produced almost 1 million last year, 2 million. And the fact they're going to be successful is they have a waiting list. If you want to buy a Tesla now, put your name down, you will get it next year. You have to wait because so many people want their vehicles. So it's absolutely amazing. He has been said that he's changing the automotive industry. Henry Ford, 100 years ago, changed the automotive industry when he started selling Model Ts. This man is revolutionizing the automotive industry. The other car manufacturers don't know what to do. They're trying, but they are so set in their old ways. And he hasn't got his old ways. He just got no advertising. They don't spend a penny on advertising. If I go online, I always see Ford and Toyota and General advertising their vehicles. They don't advertise. Their advertisements are their customers. Also, they have got Hertz have ordered 100,000 vehicles. So people now in the United States, if they want to rent a Tesla, and once they've driven a Tesla, it blows your mind because it is an experience. It's totally different to anything else you've ever experienced in your life. And people just say, wow, I want one of these. That's what sells. People showing, come and get in my Tesla and I'll show you what happens. It's unbelievable. It's a software experience. They're more of a software company than they are. And the engineering is outstanding. There's a fellow by the name of Sandy Munro. Sandy Munro has been an automotive engineer. He's probably, I think, in his 70s. He's worked for Ford Motor Company. He has consulted with companies in Japan, in China, around the world. And he takes apart cars after they're built and analyzes their engineering. He has analyzed recently, he's taken a few Teslas apart, but the most recent one is the fastest car in the world you can buy is a Tesla Plaid S, I think it's Model S. It's faster than Lamborghinis or all these also cars, 1,000 horsepower cars. It beats them. He took this car apart. It's about $120,000, I think, something like that, US. And he was drooling over it. He said, I have never in my life seen the engineering. He called it a symphony in engineering to look at how they're producing these cars. No other car manufacturer is doing, except China's starting to copy them. So his main competition for Tesla, and Elon Musk is happy to have competition because he says, we want to change the world. We want to get electric vehicles. So more competition, the better. He's not afraid of competition. He wants it. But the challenge, even the technology they're using in their factories is just outstanding. They have these big giga presses that press parts, components, and it's phenomenal. When you talk to Sandy Munro, he said, I've never seen anything like it in my life. That's why he's such a Tesla fan. He says they're going to take over the world with what they're doing. And it looks like he might. There's a waiting list. There's no advertising. There's no dealers. There's no model years. You don't get a 2019 and then a 2020, unlike the other cars. As they go and progress, they change the car and improve it all the time. So there's no model years. You just get a model, and it depends what year it was built. It's the technology of the time. And when something better comes along, they change it immediately. Unlike the other cars, they wait, okay, next year we'll put that in the car. Not with Tesla. It's totally, he is revolutionizing it like Henry Ford. So it's quite phenomenal. And they also have the Tesla supercharger network, which is no other car company has that as well. So if you have a Tesla and you can get your car charged faster, and there's more of them than any other in the world, the chargers. So he is way ahead. So it's unbelievable. If I could buy a Tesla, not that I need one, and I don't want one, so I wouldn't buy one. But I would only buy a Tesla because of what it offers if I was in the market. So Ford is about the closest car company in North America, because what they're doing is they're spinning off. They're going to start a separate company. They're going to leave their old internal combustion company, Ford, and they have to start a new one because they say, we got to change our mindset. We can't do what we're doing traditionally for the internal combustion. We have to do something different, and we have to copy him. And so they CEO of Ford he's actually said, I got to copy this guy because there's no way we can compete with our mindset. But the Chinese companies are doing well. There's some really, we'll see more and more Chinese companies coming. There's companies like BYD, which has produced a lot of electric vehicles, Xpeng, NIO, etc. So they're the main competition, not the traditional car companies. All right. So I'll just end on there because now we know what this man's done with space and all these other companies. But as I said, he has got accolades and awards, and there's so many of them. But I mentioned he was Times Person of the Year last year. And they said that he's a marker of influence. Few individuals have had more influence than Musk on life on Earth and potentially life off Earth too, because he wants to colonize Mars. And in 2022, he was elected as member into the National Academy of Engineering. And this is why they did it. Listen to this. For breakthroughs in design, engineering, manufacturing, and the operation of reusable launch vehicles and sustainable transportation and energy systems. He has an impact on all of that in the world. In design, engineering, manufacturing, and of course, reusable spaceship rockets and sustainable transport and energy systems. Okay. So that is why he is outstanding. Now, I would say, what are lessons that we could learn? Even entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, solving problems. If you can solve problems, you will be successful. This man has solved more problems, and as a result, he has become the richest man in the world. And you know what? Money isn't of importance to him. He lives in a $50,000 house in Texas next to SpaceX. He rents it from them. They bought the house for $50,000. It's one of these prefabbed houses. He sold all of his other things. You know, he did at one time have big mansions, but he sold them all. Anyway, he is here. I'll give you a couple of examples of some of the problems he has solved, which blows my mind. When I was in Australia a couple of years ago, my daughter, who lives in Melbourne, bought some shares in Tesla, which is probably one of the best things she's ever done. But the only reason she bought them was she said, I want to support Elon Musk. He is doing fantastic things. I said, well, what did he do? He said, well, let me tell you what he did in Australia. In Australia, they were having power problems in South Australia, lots of power failures and so on, you know, power going off. And this is a big impact when it's hot and you can't run your air conditioning and so on. So somebody brought this to Elon Musk's attention, that there was challenges. And he said, well, that's crazy. You've got more sunlight than anyone, you know. And what are you doing? You have coal-powered plants and they're not coping, and the power lines and so on. So he said, what you need is a battery farm because of, you know, the batteries that they're doing and solar. I mentioned Solar City. So he said, oh, this is what you need. And somebody said, well, put your money where your mouth is. He said, okay, I'll do this. And he built a battery farm in 2070 that I can't remember how many megawatt hours it was, but it was able to store energy. There was lots of windmills as well in Southern Australia. And they could store the energy so they wouldn't have power failures when things were happening. And he said, okay, I'll do this in 100 days. And if I don't do it in 100 days, I'll pay for it. If I can do it in 100 days, then you pay for it. He did it in under 100 days, and it cost them $50 million. But this has helped save $116 million in energy costs, this farm of batteries. And it's the world's biggest lithium-ion battery to help reduce the risk of blackout and help go to renewable energy where they could, so that's where, instead of using the coal power plants, that's something he did. That's why my daughter bought shares. Said, this man is remarkable. He put his money where his mouth was, and he accomplished this in 100 days, or less than 100 days, in fact. So that was interesting. Another thing he did, which I found fascinating, was the first location in Canada to receive SpaceX Starlink internet. It was under beta testing, was a remote indigenous community of 3,000 peoples in northwestern Ontario called, I don't know how to pronounce it, but Pikanakam. Now, this 3,000 person is remote. Everything has to be flown in. There's no roads into this community. And there was in Rainy River in northern Ontario, there was a company who is called FSET. And they knew about this and they wanted to say, we got to help you. They've got like, it was 3 megabits per second. 3 megabits per second internet is what they had. And of course, this wasn't, and this company in Rainy River said, well, we'll contact Elon Musk and say, can't we use Starlink for them? It was still beta testing, but it was the satellites were up. And he agreed. They turned on the satellites. They got, instead of 3 megabits per second, Starlink, they got 130 megabits per second. And this has changed that community enormously. There's a great article about it. They can now have education because they don't have to fly out to go to high school. They can get their high school education over the internet. They can get health care. They don't have to fly to doctors. They can get the doctors. They can get their legal issues and lawyers and even court cases. If there's anything, they can do that remotely. And they can see their friends and their families and everything. It changed the whole aspect of this small community. And that was something that he did. And then the last example was in the Ukraine now, during this altercation that's going on. The vice president of Ukraine reached out to him, sent him I think a Twitter, on the Twitter account, a tweet saying, hey, we need Starlink. And within 2 days, he had turned it on. He had sent the devices to link into Starlink. He changed it so that all sorts of things. They reprogrammed Starlink. They even changed it so you could plug it into your cigarette lighter and power it. All of these things he did for the Ukraine government. And he's spoken to Vladimir Zelensky and said, hey, after the war's over, we should talk about other things we can do for Ukraine. That's the type of person solving problems. This is the man that we're talking about. So that's something we can learn. We don't have to be as big, but just solve problems. The second thing is persistence. Well, I mentioned the fact that the lumber mill, the job he took, no one else wanted, but he did that. And he persisted longer than anyone else. Then SpaceX, well, the fact that they were, that they had failure after failure and said, okay, but they persisted and they're now successful. They have contracts from NASA and other companies to put up satellites and so on. And then Tesla. Well, Tesla almost went bankrupt. I mean, he slept in the factory floor and sorted out the problems and made that successful. Without him, that company would not have been successful. I mean, he persisted, and everybody was predicting, it'll never be successful. Elon Musk is the idiot. He'll never make this happen. And those are the 3 things that I would say is, well, the other thing is passionate products, and I think projects. And that, of course, LowellAnn, you always say you must do things with passion. And that's what he has. He has passion about space. He has passion about the environment and automobiles, not automobiles as much, but he's on a mission to try and say, and if there are problems, he's to his attention. If he thinks he can do something, he will try, like he did in Australia, like he did in Northern Ontario, okay, like he's done in Ukraine. And money isn't why he does it. The money is what he uses to do other things. It's not about the money. It's about, hey, I'm on a mission. It's the passionate side. So that is why I find Elon Musk one of the most interesting guys in the world. And that's why I think Time Magazine Person of the Year. So that's what I've learned. And I've enjoyed doing some of the research on this. because I felt Elon Musk is an outstanding individual who has a weird sense of humor, causes him problems sometimes. People will criticize him, say he'll never be successful. But I think he has proven a few people wrong so far.
I think so too. Oh, Fred, first of all, thank you for the passion that you put into your presentation. I can hear that you're just absolutely fascinated and appreciate the contribution, etc. So I hear the passion, your passion here. So that's infectious, isn't it? Yeah. Any comments from our? Yeah, I figured David would be in there with an engineering question of some sort. Go
Actually, I'm not.
ahead. Really?
Really, no. I wanted to. I've run into a time crunch. I wanted to thank Fred. He did a great job on the presentation. I'm gonna have to do some research now, and find more out about Elon Musk and his success. It's like Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is my hero because he takes over a factory or a business, and instead of tearing it down, selling all the parts, laying off all the people, he solves their problems, increases production, makes everything better, and salvages the company and makes it a better company. And one of my goals in my life, another one of these goals, is to own one share of Warren Buffett. Now I got another one that I may have to add, is that's one share of Tesla, which is probably close. I know the last time I checked on Warren Buffett's share, it was close to $120,000.
One chair.
Tesla's at the moment is about 1,000, but they're going to split. They're about to do a split, so it'll go down, of course. And there are people saying the reason he's going to be the first trillionaire is because Tesla is just radically changing the automotive industry, and Tesla is going to sell more vehicles than anyone else. It's just unbelievable. They're talking about 20 million vehicles by 2030. It's just unbelievable. So anyway,
I have to go, everybody. I'm short on time. Thank you very much, Fred. You did a fantastic job. Very interesting. Everybody have a great week. We'll see you.
You too,
next week.
David. Thanks for
Bye.
being here.
You're welcome.
bye, David.
Yeah. Wow. I found it really interesting. I started writing down business concepts that I was noticing, that all your examples, and I wrote down things like very strategic and a brand new business model and a new mindset and the impact that an influencer can have, and being a forward thinker. And then you came up with your three. So the problem solving and persistence and the passion. So I mean, those were all concepts that we've been talking about over the years. So yeah. So Vivek, any comment that you would like to add or ask?
I didn't see luck playing any role anywhere, so that is not part of the equation, I think. He has been. I saw one of the interviews he had done with Josh Rogan, the darling of the extreme right wing, and they were talking about the numbering or the way they have named their car models, and apparently they started with S next was E, third was X, fourth was Y. So they spelled sexy. It's, this was, I saw a YouTube short where Elon is talking to Josh, and Josh Rogan was asking him, did you just spell sexy?
Interesting. Wow.
So, yeah, and I did read about the initial problems he had with all these car dealers and the establishment, where they were saying you can't sell the cars like that. That's not the way things are done around here.
Are we talking
Well,
about?
well,
Are we talking about the two loop system of change?
yes, exactly. The the decaying loop
Yeah.
fail to do anything. They are in the process of degeneration and decay. So,
Yeah,
Really.
he's still having problems with that. Some governments have been, some state governments have put in something, oh, legally you can't do this. And it's the car dealers are scared because he sells, you order on the internet, you buy it off the internet. Doesn't have any car dealers and so on. And people will always find something to shoot you down. I mean, they always say, oh, no, he doesn't. No, he won't. And when you look at those factories, you look at the engineering, it just goes on and on. It just blows your mind what this man is achieving through his, and of course, he's got good people around him. I mean, that's another secret. And people say, oh, he's a terrible boss, they say. Really? He pays more? Like Joe Biden wouldn't even recognize his company for years now because he doesn't belong to his people don't belong to the UAW, United Auto Workers Union, and they're not union, and they vote for him, so he doesn't recognize. So, but he pays more. They have better benefits than they do. So what Elon Musk said, okay, I welcome the UAW to come to the factory in California, and they can talk to the workers, and if they want to join, they can join. I have no problems with that. And he won't, but I'll be very surprised if his workers decide to go to the UAW because, man, there's certain things. First of all, they're not allowed to be shareholders in Tesla. And if you work for Tesla, there are many millionaires now made in Tesla from the Tesla shares they had. In fact, I think Tesla, I'm not an expert, but people are saying, man, Tesla shares, if he accomplished what looks like he's going to accomplish, it's going to be he's revolutionizing the automotive industry. It's totally revolutionizing it in all ways. And of course, everybody standard is saying, oh, no, we can't do it that way. So, as I said, Ford is probably one of them, and Volkswagen is doing reasonably well as well in Europe. They've had a lot of, so those two are doing, but the Chinese are just way ahead.
So, Fred, did you say you read you found a book or a book about him?
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it. It was, but there are a lot of books. Well, more than one now. I can't. I'll look it up if you want. If I can find it, I will. I may have made a note on it. I often write notes on my books that I read, and I'll have a look to see if I have any notes on the book, and I'll tell you which one it was. I don't think it wasn't written by him. It was somebody wrote about him.
I see.
But they did a lot of research, and that's where I heard about the lumber mill and the uncle who was supposed to be in Montreal but wasn't when he arrived in Canada at the age of 18.
Wow. Right. Okay. So, that would be an interesting read for sure. So I'm looking at our time. We're over the hour again as usual. But I do want to share. Javita says, "Thanks, Fred, for some amazing facts." So that's her comment there. I just wanted to make sure that you got that. And I do want to, I think we should close now. I want to thank you so much for your passion about this and the way that you presented it, fitting in with all the themes that we have a tendency to find interesting and important as solopreneurs. I really appreciate that. And so before we close, I need to remind everyone it's important to do what you love with passion. And to just let you know, we're going to have another really different topic next time. We're going to be talking about food next week. So,
Yeah.
so having said that,
I did mention about the food when yeah.
So I haven't even given any thought to kind of what direction we're going to take, but I'll think of something. So we will see you again next week, and bye for now, and I will put in the outro.